Charlie.
What's going on? How you doing?
You too. I'm good. Charlie, I heard you were on stage with Madonna last night. I haven't seen
You
it.
know, just
What?
quiet, just a quiet Tuesday, innit?
I mean, that's insane.
Just a Tuesday.
I'm gonna find foot. I want to see that.
Yeah.
What were you doing?
I've already sold it to TMZ, so just to let you know.
I was helping. She was singing Vogue, and her background dancers were doing like a fashion show, and she needed some help, like judging a fashion show. So
You are the first person I would call for that. So.
Shh, I am known. My fashion knowledge is known across the globe, evidently.
Let's talk about the film.
Okay, let's do it.
Guys, what a film. A brand new world that we're stepping into. I honestly, when I sat down, it took me a minute to kind of get my head around all of it. So to make it easier for those who are coming into it, what's a good thing to kind of know before going into it so that you're at home?
Takes, I don't know.
That we're
if
all
this-
in space.
Yeah, I was going to say, it takes place in space.
Great, thank you.
It's multiple planets with multiple species. And we got some good guys and we got some bad guys, and they're in a fight for the future of the known universe.
Well, the good guys also were bad guys at one point.
Yeah.
All right.
And they had a change of heart.
And then the bad guys become good guys. And then go back to being bad guy. I mean, there's all sorts of things going on.
It's
right?
also a story about
It's
the few.
very exciting.
Very exciting. It's also a story about the few against the many. It's a story about redemption. It's a story about 7 very different archetypes and misfits coming together to find their feet again in their own lives and hopefully finally stand for something again, taking on a grand enemy and helping a peaceful, not nomadic, peaceful agricultural moon.
There we go.
He said
Perfect.
it, like
Perfect.
what he said.
Yeah. I know when you do films like this, there's a lot of green screen. So when you guys saw the finished thing, was there anything that particularly blew you away?
What's wonderful about Zack and what's meticulous about Zack is he renders all these kind of worlds and draws them up himself prior to even the DOP, which he was as well, getting involved. This was, so we, and you can never prepare yourself for seeing it in real life,
Yeah.
high definition, moving, but he gave us kind of impressions and quite detailed impressions of what all the worlds were like.
Okay.
So there's always an element of like, wow, this is unbelievable. But I think what was even more impressive was seeing how well he recreated these renderings and how accurate they were to his vision initially.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing about Zack is that he doesn't really rely on visual effects as much as you might imagine. He really likes for himself and the rest of the actors to actually be working in a physical space.
Yeah.
So it was like 2 steps to it. All of the immediate world that we were interacting with was all built and real, which is why the film cost as much as it did. And then after, the more backdrop of it was then created digitally. But it was a real treat to actually go and see what that second level of rendering was when.
Yeah.
You mean that whole budget wasn't just your salary, Charlie?
It was actually mainly mine. It was actually mainly mine, me being the heavy hitter here.
But I only ultimately took 60% of it.
Okay. That makes sense. You are all guys who I'm sure look after yourselves, go to the gym, do all that kind of thing anyway. How much extra training does it take for a film like this? Because you're all...
Extra, as you said. Extra.
An unfathomable act, if I'm completely honest. This is, to the extent where I took 8 or 9 months off after doing this, It was this. At one point I was sitting about 5 or 6% body fat for nearly 6 to 7 months. Which
But you're like
had an
on show,
interest.
so that
I'm on
makes...
show all the time.
Yeah.
But it's and that's it's almost at a professional standard.
No,
not to
you look great.
No,
You
thank
look
you,
great.
and not to bolster myself up, but just to kind of clarify and kind of really reiterate how difficult it was, but it was also in many ways necessary. I mean, part of Zack's ethos is creating the character from the inside out and from the outside in, and this really allowed us to inform the level of discipline and survival that would be necessary to be these characters.
Yeah.
So.
Of course, the physicality of his film carry a certain level of military training, which I wasn't, necessarily familiar with, and I think Charlie can tell you a word or two about that.
Yeah, I thought it
How'd that-
sucked. I thought sucked. I should have known, because maybe it's like well known that you gotta like go through like a certain amount of trauma to be in a Zack Snyder film, but like there was no discussion about it, and all of a sudden, you know, it was told that we had this, you know, mandatory training, and I'm like, listen, you only see my hands and my neck. I'm not doing it. I rejected the mandate. I said, I'm just like straight up not doing it.
Yeah, the rebel in you did not want
But you know what? It's like I realized, honestly, the reason I did do it was because I realized that so much of your job is really about like the relationships you make and gaining trust. And all these guys were gonna, you know, go to the gym and get tortured and like bleed and sweat and like cry together. And I thought, man, like I wanna be part of this crew, so I guess I gotta.
And you took 60% of the budget, so you had to put in the work.
Yes, heavy as the head that wears the crown.
Guys, good luck with the film when it comes out. You're a joy to speak to. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
That's what I'm calling you from now on. I'm calling you Charlie the Budget Hunnam.